Ta-da, yay. All right, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your camera, change your name, but you know, we do have to have a record of what we're doing. So, in January of 2021, there was the need for the Black Liberation Caucus, and it came together. We had and agreed on a basis of political agreement in terms of how we would meet and who we would meet and the areas that we would focus on, such as Palestinian support, Palestinian solidarity, and ending mass incarceration, and working on reparations, and a host of other priorities to the Black Liberation Caucus. We were going, and a regular meeting sub body of WILF members, when there started to be some disagreement about whether or not we represented a what's the word? A legitimate body within WILF. And as a result of that pushback, the European Descent Allies Caucus was formed. Some of y'all were requested to make that caucus happen to support explicitly the work and reality of the Black Liberation Caucus, that we were legitimate as you were legitimate. No one questioned EDAC, so no one should question the Black Liberation Caucus. That is my recollection of our beginning. And I want to share with you the 3-year strategy chart, which the BLC, oh, that's wrong page. The BLC came up with the 3-year strategy chart not that long after we started working together. It was to cover from January 22 to December 2024. We're in the 3rd year of the BLC strategy chart. And one of the primary goals for the chart is the anti-racism transformation, the ART, which, as Teresa so accurately pointed out, has not moved until now, this last year of the chart. So here are the goals that you can see. I'll scroll up so you can read them. And you'll see down here, having branches participate in anti-racism transformation, or ART, which we will talk about some more today. We have here our anti-racism partners. There are branches listed. There are individuals listed. You may see your name on that individuals list. There are also organizational allies listed as allies or partners in this work to end and transform racism within WILF. The resources here, human, publication, and videos, are resources to be used in that work. And most of these are resources that I've used or I have helped pull together. And with the help of people like Dr. Linda Ridley, I can add to this resources list. Here in the 4th column, which may be hard for y'all to see, try to remove that block. These are the activities that have happened between July and December. This is kept up to date for the most part in work that Teresa and I do together to make sure we are putting on here current meetings, events, activities that move us towards our goal. The Congress is in here. The tour that's going to happen in May that Teresa will be doing. It's the UN Decade Reparations Organize the South tour. I've got to revise the wording there, as well as the No to NATO dates in July through our board elections that begin in October to the end of the year. And then at the very last column, the strategic objectives. If we successfully do what we're supposed to do, what does it result in? It results in all branches having at least 10 paid up active members. It results in WILF US board be having majority BIPOC officers. It results in no less than 3 BIPOC members in each branch that will participate in global efforts to end NATO, and that we work with the Palestine Working Group, and that participation grows, as does our work beginning in November to be part of the triennial. So the chart is a way to really measure the work that we're doing or make sure we're to some extent on track. Any comments or questions? No?
George, that was excellent in terms of how you covered that. And I really appreciate you doing such a great job on explaining where we are and what we're trying to do. And I will look forward to the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on? We're good? Yay. All right. I like that. All indications of a brief meeting. Sounds
like Sue was about to say something.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering who TIA is. TIA Tours?
That's
Is that
Kim
Linda?
Poole. Kim Poole is here. Woo! Say hey, Kim Poole.
Hi, Kim.
But
Oh, yeah, I thought you
isn't
noticed.
she in Cameroon now?
Teaching
Wow.
Artists Institute, Ty. Yeah, they're in the house. Thank you, Kim. Sorry to hear about the trip. I do want to hear more. Thank you.
Did the trip happen to Cameroons?
So no, it didn't. We didn't raise enough money. We pushed until the very last minute. We do have some things underway though. What we realized ultimately is that that was not the end. Not being able to, me as an individual, go on this peace building mission, it was simply the beginning. And so we have some incredible things coming down the pipeline, not just for myself, but each one of those WILF women that stepped up to say yes when they could have said no. I just want you to know how appreciative I am of the fact that in South Africa, in the Zulu nation, we say sawubona, that you saw me. Sawubona is a basic greeting. It means I see you. And it's how they greet each other. And so especially you, Miss Robin, you made the largest contribution. And I know that that is a convenience. Having access to resources is the reason that you can give more. But a lot of people have a lot more than you do, and they didn't even acknowledge. Acknowledgement, being seen, is essential when you do this work. None of us are here because it's our job. We don't get paid to be at this table. Time is the most valuable resource we have. And so being acknowledged and seen, I wanted WILF Cameroon to know that we saw them, that we heard them, and just know that today, as of this morning, me, my branch contact, Tara, and Miss Tina, who's also on this call, we had a call today. And so I can't wait to tell everyone what's coming down the pipe. And so thank you for being a part of the vision and for acknowledging my invitation, and just the fact that I'm here. And being new doesn't mean that you can't also contribute and be powerful and a part. I'm new to WILF, but I'm not new to advocacy for peace building and freedom. And so thank you for giving me a chance to do that.
Thank you so much, Kim, we are doubly, triply, quadruply blessed that you are in our circle and on our side. It's a beautiful thing. The next thing on the agenda, I don't know if we want to discuss in detail, but sometime back, I think as early as January of this year, because of conversations, email exchanges, and comments during international meetings, International WILF agreed to have a person who is skilled at mediation and conflict resolution, who's in California. Her name is Shilpa Jain, Jain, Jane, like rain. And she conducted phone interviews with members to try to determine what's the issue and how she could help, I guess. I spoke to her for about 15 minutes a couple weeks ago. Maybe some of y'all have too. Teresa, go ahead.
Well, George, you should finish your explanation because my explanation is a bit different because in after the BLC became under attack in 2022, right before the triennial of Wilf International, we were in close contact with Madeline Reese. And then after the triennial, we remained in close contact with Sylvie Indoma. And we remained in close contact with Beatrice out of Costa Rica. So there is a history to this of Wilf International acknowledging that this is not the first time, because Melissa Torres is a vice president at the international level, and she did that while disassociating with the U.S. section. So in terms of us working on dismantling white supremacy and racism, let's be clear about the whole story, about how we got to this point. My general feeling is that Wilf International is a well-heeled bureaucracy with lots of money and lots of staff. And as we know, the Palestine Working Group has already been exposed as leaving out the Palestinians, and that we got from the Palestinians. So I'll stop by just saying, I would like to know who else has spoken with Shilpa. I believe Robin has, and I'm due to speak with her on Monday because she contacted me again saying that the project was coming to a close in essence, and that everybody has to get in their comments by May 3rd or something, I think she said. And I told her I was real busy in February and March when she tried to contact me with Black History Month, Women's History Month. So I didn't even see her email. And so she said she understood. So we set a time to meet on Monday. So I will do a Zoom event in a conversation with Shilpa, the consultant. So I just want to be completely transparent about what I'm doing. And I would urge that the other EDAC members in particular would say who of them have spoken with Shilpa. I do believe Robin has done that. So we know now that Robin and George have done it. So is there anyone else in this meeting who has done it so far? I won't do it until Monday.
I don't think I've done it.
So Robin, you have not spoken to Shilpa. Jan, Tina, you have not. Sue, you have not. Gloria?
I got confused for a while of the two Shilpas because we know that Shilpa was running the CSW, but
Right.
I don't think I've talked with this Shilpa lady.
Okay.
What are we
Gloria?
talking to her about? I don't even know what we're talking to her about.
She asked questions about any conflicts within the U.S. section and the quality or the tone of our meetings. You know, is there bad communication practices happening? Things like that.
Oh, okay. How do you get in touch with her?
I could, if you want to talk to her, I can share her email address when I send
Yeah, I
out
would
the
be willing to,
report.
because communications is something I'm interested
I
in.
understand. I actually even used the word rhetoric today, Gloria. Thinking about you, it was a trip.
Oh, where's the up? I'll have to find that reactions here.
It was a trip. I was like, oh, this is rhetoric.
Yes, it's all
Think about
rhetoric.
how you try to persuade someone in a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
So now I hope you will indulge me while I have you help me think about our process around the training of trainers that will happen during Congress, Thursday night and Friday night for an hour to an hour and a half each. I will do the initial foundation for 2 people from each branch that's involved, at least 2, and those 2 people will then go back to their branch and recruit another person so that you have teams of 3 in each branch that are doing regular, consistent training or conversations around ending white supremacy and racism and oppression. I see you, Gloria. I know that often people describe it as anti-racism work. In the decades that I've done this work in different forms with different teams, but always with teams, I see my role not so much as working for something I'm against, but for what I want to create. And to me, it's about community building because it's about communication skills, self-evaluation skills, support and accountability, and radical honesty, which can feel, as for you as an individual, that radical honesty can feel emotionally and spiritually difficult and painful. Early on, one of the people who's still a colleague with me around this work said, you know, George, you're like strong medicine. And even if you need it, you can have a bad reaction to it. That taught me something. Or he said a allergic reaction to it. So it's feedback. Okay, fine. So here's something I want you to help me think about. From our BLC strategy chart, there was the allies list. Every name you'll see on this piece of paper is on the allies list. Here are 4 members who I cannot remember what branch they're in. So that I may ask you later to help me identify it. These are what I refer to as the top 10 possible branches to do this work. And when I say this work, I mean starting at the Congress and the training of trainers. Oh, I thought my camera was on. I apologize. Here I am trying to talk to people and I'm not even on camera. So the Southern Piedmont branch is my branch. Samantha Turner has sort of been out of pocket. So Jennifer Lee Disney, who actually lives in South Carolina, but is part of the Piedmont branch, and Steve Smith, who teaches in South Carolina, but lives in Charlotte and is part of that branch, may be the 2 participants there, joined later by Samantha when she's better equipped. Jan Quarterman has already shown interest. I hope Mary Beth Gardam joins her. Tina's here. So Greater Philadelphia, I hope, is one of those branches. Tina, someone would have to accompany you. Ellen Mass in the Triangle and Emily Keel have both expressed interest in participating in these sessions, but not in the Congress. So that could be a problem, maybe. Betty Traynor has not been approached, but Joan Goddard did say she was interested. So Joan needs to get Betty there. So those are 5 branches. And these other branches, I hope you're interested too and can find someone. Gloria, if you could find a partner for Tucson, Chicago, ideally someone from European descent. Robin, there is a woman in your branch who comes to or came to the last UN Decade for People of African Descent Reparations, AHR working group meeting. I'm not remembering her name right now. I think it begins with a J, and she is interested. So Robin, you can connect with her. Hopefully, Sue, you get someone. If the 3 of y'all get a partner for the Congress, then we have 8 branches participating. Darian said she was interested. If she gets a partner and shows up, that would be 9, and kind of amazing because I think she's saying it, but I don't know if how deep the commitment is. Judy Adams from Palo Alto also reached out to me. and said she was interested. I haven't followed up with her. I have to, and I will. Vicki Elson is in the DMV branch. I don't know if there are other people of European descent in the DMV branch that might participate. And Diane
I didn't,
Blake
Mhm.
is someone
I didn't
else.
think Vicki Elson was in the DM.
No,
What is DMV?
DC,
I thought she
Maryland,
lived
and
up
Virginia.
in Boston area. Not
Oh.
Boston, she's with Timon. But maybe you're thinking of somebody
No,
else, but
I'm wrong. I could
I'll
easily
go.
be wrong. Tina, I was thinking
George,
Elson.
George, I know it's sometimes hard for you to see people's hand raised when you have the screen up.
That's
But
right.
my hand has been raised for a while, and we're just having people kind of jumping in. But I did want to make a couple of corrections.
Yes, ma'am.
Joan Goddard is actually in the San Jose branch, so she should not be listed with San Francisco. And I would urge you to get Barbara Nielsen to be committed, because she has, in my experience, taken up the question of racial justice rather consistently. And so I would say that changing, to San Jose. And then on the question of the DMV branch, and I know this is a point, I think, Kim, where you get to learn a little bit of the history. It's not a place where you can really intervene on what should be different, because those of us who have been working on this for a long time and who know the DMV branch, we know that I believe her name is Martha Allen, and I believe Vicki Elson left the DMV and moved to the Northeast. So you probably want to be looking towards Boston to see if you could get the Boston women. That's a very white branch. And as we discussed, George, you're really only focusing on the branches that have not achieved the objectives. So the DMV branch should be off the list completely, because there are way more people of color in the DMV branch than are people of European descent. So you don't want to waste time on branches that are already compliant. You only want to target the branches. And I thought we had this conversation that are non-compliant. And most of those branches on the West Coast. And that's all of California, because I think Fresno still maybe has one, possibly two people of color, and San Francisco has only Philip Cole that I know of. But you should also note that Nancy Price meets with the Sacramento branch, and she said this numerous times. And I think if Nancy Price and Darian could be a team, that would be awesome. But the DMV should be off the list, as well as the Southern Piedmont, because the Southern Piedmont is majority women of color, I think. It certainly has more than 3.
Yes, it does.
So you don't want to put branches on the list that have already achieved the objectives. And all the branches in the South have achieved the objectives. I think even the Triangle may be at that point. You'd have to check with Mary White, but I can tell you right now, they would not be interested. And I think they may have told you that already. But as far as Southern Piedmont, Metro Atlanta, Fannie Lou Hamer, DMV branch, we're all in compliance, because these are the new branches that have basically come out of the BLC process. So let's tighten up the work, so it's really focused on what needs to be done rather than just adding stuff.
Thank
I
you.
hope you understand, George.
Yes. Tina, your hand is up.
Yes, but if you want to keep flowing, I can say this later.
Okay, don't forget, there's only a little bit here I want to share with you.
George, let's hear it now. Let's hear it now.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Tina.
well, I was gonna just comment on your comment, Teresa. It sounds like in addition to the goal of transforming the branches in terms of members of color and having, you know, at least the minimum, I do think, I guess one possible benefit of having those people who are those branches who are already meeting that goal could be that once they receive the training, then they could help, you know, some other branches, let's say, you know, just be in partnership, kind of, I don't know, just building capacity. So
Well, I'm glad that you made your comment, because this is what I call the dodging, George, because the people who are in the branches who are compliant, those branches are led overwhelmingly by people of color. So the training is not needed because the trainers are already there. And that's why the branches look like they look, because the women who are the leaders of the branch just are women of color who have this experience, and they do it in a different way than George does it. So we're giving George a chance to use her methodology, which she says is not about anti-racism or dismantling white supremacy. It's about where we want to get to. And my general opinion, George and Tina, is you can't get to where you want to be unless you are clear about what needs to be dismantled. But this is George's project, and
got
she
it.
and I agreed that there's no need to bring in branches that are compliant. So only those of you who have, like, you have just Sheila Harper, I believe is the only woman of color in the greater Philadelphia branch, which is a dynamic branch. And there's no reason, and I've said to Sheila that she needs to recruit. So that's why it is the way it is, Tina. And I think it's important to understand it. So your question was very important.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
And Tina, it's a segue also to some of the expectations and commitments I want to request that the EDAC take on. And one of those is that it's described as a training of trainers because once there's that skill set and a regular every other meeting, once a month, once every 2 months, whatever it is, that's a consistent, regular time that branch is focusing on undoing white supremacy, undoing oppression, creating community and authentic, transparent, equitable relationships, then you're able to share that with someone else. You can model it, you can support them to get to the right place, you can help them realize and recognize when they're off track. Hey, Sheila Harper, what you got for us?
Good evening, ladies. Hi.
Hi.
Of course, when my name came up, I had to make certain that I responded. So yes, one of the reasons I think that we still need, and we are working on our anti-racism work. I don't want anybody that I know to say, Sheila, why are you bringing me to this? Quite frankly, I have in the past invited folks to the anti-racism work. One wasn't treated too well when they went through some things, which really hurt my feelings because I knew the person, psychiatrist, since high school. So he wasn't treated very well and he didn't come back. The second person that I invited actually is part of a Black radio station. Her dad owned it, Dr. Walter Lomax. She came the first time. I think what has to happen, because I don't want to invite people that I know and feel embarrassed, of Sheila. So I don't know how to deal with that. Okay. But I know that first time I was pretty upset about the psychiatrist being kind of poo-pooed. So I know maybe I don't know, George, do you have any method of or idea of how I can deal with that type of feeling? And I'm just being honest, ladies, that's all.
I appreciate that, Sheila. And in my thinking, it's not your responsibility to deal with that kind of feeling. The branch needs to be a welcoming place to start with. And when people come and they don't come back, that's because they can sense that that is not a place where they are welcome. And then it's the responsibility, mostly on the shoulders of the people of European descent, to do the work. And that's what the sessions at the Congress will be about, getting started and doing the work. Yes, Teresa.
George, I think this is what you're going to face is a level of misunderstanding. I believe that Gloria put the name Ricketts in the chat,
Emily
and I
Ricketts.
think you, Emily, and I think you have to be very clear with the EDAC members that this is partnerships of people of European descent working together to get the training. That was the way I understood it, because I remember Robin is someone asking, can I get another person of color? No, because you have to address the white fragility in your branch. And so you have to find another person of European descent who is willing to be a part of the training. And if you looked at the list of all the names that are associated with branches, George is very clear about this strategy as I understood it. But George, I'm not so sure that everyone else is clear. And the story that Sheila told is something for your team, which includes Sheila, and I'm so happy you came. Sheila, Dr. Linda, and Kim are all a part of your team, as I understand it. So, George, I think you need to explain a little bit more about structure and process, because you and I have talked about this in detail, and you explained to me what you were doing. And I told you about what I thought the obstacles and hurdles would be. But George, it is your project. But I want to make sure that everybody understands it in the same way. These are teams of people of European descent and branches who have a very few, maybe one or none, in the way of BAPA members. Is that the way this is planned, George? Please tell me I'm wrong, or tell them they need to understand that.
I think you're not wrong. I think that teams of 2 people of European descent will go back after they've had these couple of hours or 3 hours of baptism by fire, in some ways that it will be. They'll go back, recruit a 3rd person, and teams of 3 will sustain that work in the branch and help the people in the branch to get to a place where when someone walks through the door who's not white, they do feel welcome. They're not alienated.
Well, George, is
the
third person a person of European descent or a person of color? Be clear.
Ideally, they're a person of European descent. It could be a person of color.
Okay.
But the ideal situation is teams of 3, because part of the principle is accountability for privilege. And that's one of the things that we'll cover during that first night. So I wanted to talk a little bit about process, and the process in terms of those 2 initial settings or sessions. They will cover fundamentals, definitions, basic definitions about racism, oppression, prejudice, the difference between prejudice and racism, the difference between personal racism and systemic racism. To make that really clear, we'll also talk about history. There really isn't a way to adequately begin to unravel white supremacy and racism without first talking about history, whether it's colonialism and enslaving Black folks and killing Native folks in different continents, in different countries, or simply the history of racism within wealth, which No Peace Without Freedom can give you some good information about. And that's a legacy that we are in. We're part of that legacy. And our charge while we're here, and I'll say this now, you'll hear it again from me a lot often around this issue. Ending white supremacy and racism is the rest of your life. It's not something you're going to learn in a weekend or some books that you read or a movie you saw or a speaker you heard. It is a practice. And practice, if you ever learn how to play the piano, you better play that thing every 2 or 3 days or you're going to be wrong. You'll lose your touch. Same thing with anti-oppression skills. That's why you need regular, consistent work on it, because you're being barraged by white supremacy every day. It's ubiquitous. It's in everything. It's in the air you breathe. So unless you're also regularly rooting out that garbage, replacing it with your own truth, your own experiences, your highest ideals for the person you want to be in relationship to people who do not have the same privilege you have, white skin privilege, male privilege, financial access privilege, being heterosexual, being Christian, going to college, speaking English, being a US citizen. The list is long, and we all have some of those privileges. If and when we're using those privileges in service to our goals and our values, then we're okay. The anti-racism transformation, as I said, that first night will be, here's how you get started. And it will feel harsh. As my friend Jesse said, me being, you're being allergic to what I might be communicating, you will feel that. People will feel that. But all I can say is we will breathe through it together. You're not going to fall apart. You're not going to, explode or disappear. No one is going to attack you. One of the big lies around doing anti-racism work that white people believe and our culture conditions people to think about is that dealing with racism means you're a bad person. And someone called me a racist, like this is an indictment. Like, you're being accused of racism. Oh my good God. No, it is not an indictment. It is not saying you suck or you have no value. It is stating the reality of life in this culture. So that's where we start with saying, this is what it is. This is truth. Based on this truth, and here are my values and how I want to live in life, how do I make them fit? What do I need to do to make them fit? That's what we will cover during the first night. The second night, you'll have some homework in between. Sorry about that, but there will be homework. I'll try to not make it long. It'll be mostly reading and videos. We might watch one tonight. But during that second night, you'll start talking about, so what feels hard about this? And try to help each other think about remedies for what feels hard. That's one of the reasons you want a team of 3 white folks, because you support each other. And support is just another form of holding each other accountable. If Robin says, I want to reach these goals when it comes to anti-oppression at my branch, and those goals you'll come up with that second night. And based on those goals, you'll start to put together your plan for your branch. So you'll walk out that second night with at least an outline of a plan for your branch to start taking steps towards ending white supremacy, so that it's something that's written, it's measurable, it's something that with your partners at the branch or other 2 partners, you can implement. And then we'll figure out, so at what interims do y'all get together and report on work and support each other and think about upcoming work? Because again, it's not going to be over in a couple of months or a couple of weekends. This is the rest of your life and the rest of the life of your branch. And you can expect it to grow. You can expect it to have conflict. Conflict is a sign that you're healthy. When people have no conflict, it's not a real relationship. If you meet somebody, every time you see him, you say, Adrian, how you doing? Adrian goes, I'm doing fine. George, how you doing? I'm doing fine. That's not real. That's not real at all. Real is when somebody says, you know, George, you're looking a little rough these days. Are you all right? What's going on with you? So we want to be able to have conflict and stay in it with each other. So you know that conflict is going to come. Know that as white folks, you are absolutely 100% going to get it wrong. And once you know, oh, I know I'm going to get it wrong, but what am I going to do when I get it wrong? How can I help somebody else when they get it wrong to stay in it with each other? Not to say, the hell with you, I'm gone, and quit the branch, but hang in there. We have to do that if we're going to build power for change. Teresa, sorry for preaching, y'all. We're about done, so I'm about to let y'all go. Go ahead, Teresa.
And you were, no, George. See, this is the thing, sister. You can't do this in a vacuum. Please read out loud what I wrote in the chat. Because, see, before we leave this meeting, because your experience has not been working with people of African descent, and that does have an impact on this, since those of us who are in here, who have spent our whole lives working with people of African descent for our liberation, this is significant. So please read it out loud, George, what I wrote in the chat.
Okay, I'm making it big enough for me to see. My glasses broke, so vision is different these days. It's not bad,
Well,
but
I'll read it.
okay.
I'll read it, George.
All right, then I've got it.
There are no guarantees about how this will be received. If you do this single-handedly, and I'm saying that to you, George, there may be pushback from people with Pan-Africanism as their politics. And please read what Kim wrote, who is a Pan-Africanist. Lucy Murphy is a Pan-Africanist. I am a Pan-Africanist. And since you don't have much experience with that set of politics, you have to draw in people like Sheila and Kim and Dr. Linda, so that you aren't forging ahead with what you normally do, because wealth has changed over the past 2+ years. It's changed because I worked very hard to change it. So that's why Adrian is here and Kim is here. I'm looking at people I recruited, George. And you're different from most of us. And so this program that you're running, you have to take into account those of us with the Chicano and Pan-African experiences. And so I think when we have our meeting on Sunday as the BLC, this will be at the core of the conversation we have. And I think you should go ahead and start now to connect with Sheila, because you heard what Sheila said about how she felt about bringing somebody in the branch and how she was hurt. There are a lot of hurt feelings out here among people of African descent, and you simply cannot ignore it. So
no, it's not my intention to do that at all. And I pray that I do have the support and participation from Sheila, Dr. Ridley, Adrian, Kim, anyone who has experience that's willing to help me to do this and do it well. I'm going to welcome that and seek it out.
George,
yes,
George, I know you. We have been working together for well over 20 years. And this idea of reaching out and building a team among people of color, the BIPOC folks, it's not your strength. And I will do everything I can to support you, but you got to make sure that when you're thinking this through, everybody sees what you're thinking. And you have to ask for feedback. what do you think about this? Because the feedback you just got from Kim is, why do we have to base this on the geographic situations of the colonizers? Those are very strong words, George, not to be ignored. And Kim, I do want to talk to you about that at some point. But George, I see that this could go really wrong. But I'm gonna hang in here with you, George. You know,
That's
I'll never
good.
quit you. I'll
Okay.
never quit you, George. I'll never quit you. Never.
Okay, cool. Give us time before we do deep evaluation. I see you, Kim, and then Gloria. And then I'll have one closing thing and we'll be done. Kim, please, and then Gloria.
Yes, Miss George, I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I just wanted to bring two things to the forefront. First and foremost, the power of wealth um, is really at the International Secretariat. And though there is membership around the world and it is marketed that that's the power of wealth, it's really ceremonious. And so, what I would say, honestly, is if you're looking to attract, uh, I would say, Black and Brown people that are interested in being a part of this movement, you should do it at the levels where they see the power that Wilf's allyship can offer. And for me, just coming back from Geneva, I saw that um, I, I hosted a side event that was focused on preserving identity and identifying what I consider cultural genocide with this against the Stay Woke movement out of Florida legislation and Tennessee. And it was a benefit to me to be in Wilf, to say that I have these allies right across the street from the United Nations that are willing to host this conversation and create this safe space for me because they have the infrastructure. I didn't have to go and look for a venue. The staff members, they didn't have a budget, but they, were sincere when they brought mixed berries for us to eat and bottled water and Swiss cookies, the little low-hanging fruit things that make a difference. People at the permanent forum on people for people of African descent, they saw that. They saw it as power. They were interested in this now new space that they didn't know about that said, oh, we will host a safe parallel conversation for you in our office that we've spent 109 years working to build that's right across the street from the UN. I think looking at deconstructing racism is a systemic conversation, and it means sharing power. It's powerful to have a safe space directly across the street from the United Nations in Geneva, where they can say, come into my office and have your conversation there. And so we're not going to necessarily change prejudice and the small cues that show us that people have this indoctrination based on their access and based on the life that they've lived. And I don't think spending time focused on that should be the primary focus when we have power to divide and share and access to give. And I just wanted to say, from my personal experience, because that's the only place I can speak from, I noticed that I'm at the table with people that have been doing this work for years, and I don't want to undermine your authority and your knowledge as experts around what it looks like to have these conversations. I am not, but I am a Black person that is a Pan-Africanist that's advocating for Black and Brown people globally and also decolonizing the world. And that means building peace, and it means sharing access, and it means celebrating freedom. And I experienced that just last week in Geneva, a town where I didn't know anybody. And so what I'm saying is, what are the structural changes? Are we working on prejudice and how people feel about Black and Brown people, or are we using the time that we have to change things systemically? Because if we're going to work on how people feel and prejudice and having them be more open to Black and Brown spaces and people, and then that's a paid job. I was at the Will Philly branch meeting, and Miss Sheila invited me there. and I'm not sure who the member was, but they were analyzing a colorblind article written by Nicole Hannah-Jones in the New York Times about, color blindness, etc. That is a job to teach people that are not Black or brown why they should consider and make space and care about Black and brown people in leadership and giving, like, that is a job. And if somebody comes into the space to do that, they should be paid. And no Pan-Africanist is going to come and do that work for free as a membership of an organization that they don't see value in. I see the value in WILF at an international level because I see.
You muted yourself. Okay, go ahead.
I see their ability to throw around weight because they've been in the UN since before it started in the League of Nations with 47 women, a history that really needs to be more celebrated because more people need to know about that. But I see the access, I see the special consultative status, and I see the infrastructure, and I can package that to other Black and brown people and say, these are people that want to ally with us in advocacy of legislation on these platforms where we're already working, where they help to create these platforms like the UN. Just that conversation is enough to open the dialogue with somebody where they're not going to say, Kim, why do you have me here? They're going to say, no, I get it. I came to the event. They had an office that was across the street, walking distance. We didn't have to get on the bus, and they were willing to share that with us, and they didn't have to. These are the kind of systemic things that I'm talking about when I say recruitment tools, and that I see the value in. But if we're talking about just helping people, cope with Blackness and, create access in Black and brown spaces, that's a job, and you need to create a stipend for somebody to do that.
Thanks so much, Kim. And I hope that when and if you and Sheila and Dr. Linda and other Jean Kennedy, if we can get her to participate, Adrian, Teresa, when we come together to talk about our process and curriculum, such as it might be, we can have this conversation, and I really welcome that. And I absolutely have only done this work successfully in a team, not by myself because it's too hard and there's not enough money. So if we can go another, hopefully not more than 4 or 5 minutes. I see you, Gloria. I see you. You go. I've got one thing and then we'll be done. Go ahead, Gloria. If you go longer than 3 minutes, I'll let you know.
I'm sorry. I just couldn't let this go. And, there's something you're not at all focused on is listening to the individual branches and how they're responding to this. There is a problem that isn't just racism, but that it's part of it because they're uncomfortable, and probably that is part of it.
Bad.
But there's a resistance in the Tucson branch against things from the national. When we had Mary Beth Gardam come and she attempted to talk about doing more things with Zoom, some of these women are, it's too much trouble. Well, then they were uncomfortable. Now this coming in about training, they're starting to come up with their own little other oppressions, kind of distracting from the kind of training to other oppressions. And Adrienne Bernal, you would know about this. I'm in Tucson. Everything's border here, border, Chicano, Mexicano, Guatemala, and so they came back with, oh, well, what about our kind of privilege we have? They wanted to weaken things coming from the national by saying we're special, we're different. Now, this is like, it's good that they want to deal with that, but they can't use that in order to fend off. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I absolutely do.
I've
heard that pushback from white folks because they're trying to get out. They're trying to find an out from being responsible and taking responsibility for their privilege. But
it's a valid thing to do on the other hand, and yes, but
it's not like you're trying. There's no hierarchy of oppression. So just because we're focusing on race doesn't mean we don't care about sexual identity. Doesn't mean we don't care about physical ability.
Too,
but you do absolutely have to start with what is the root of oppression in the US? It is race-based. So that's the truth. That's the history. And speaking
Right.
of, as my closing piece for y'all, and we'll follow up with setting a next meeting with my trying to get, God bless it, as I'm sitting here praying with my hands in prayer position, that the people here, people of color on this call, will help me to do this well and keep things accountable and transparent. I see your hand, Teresa. I'll get you right before I go to this brief video. So I have a college friend who's a history teacher at high school in Western North Carolina in Macon County. Super white, super racist, super scary. He's a history teacher. He also does book readings that we go through. He's done a book that we're going through now. It's called The Righteous Mind. It's weird. And on the Wednesday night meeting about it, one of the people in that session said that he thought white supremacy didn't exist. There was no such thing. And what I'm going to show you is what my friend sent me the day after, because I got off the call. I'm like, I gave him a little bit of time and space because, I'm about peace and justice and everybody deserves to be heard and all humans have value, blah, blah, blah. But he was just ridiculously wrong. And what the hell, if you're not going to listen to reason. So you go, Teresa, and then I'll play this. I think it's not longer than a minute and a half, the video John sent me Thursday morning as a response to this guy. Go ahead, Teresa. Do you have anything that you want to say, Teresa? Your hand is up, but you're muted. I don't want to end the meeting without you saying what you want to say.
Oh, George, I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute, but I sent you a message in the chat
Okay.
because our collaboration is deep. And I think that it's important especially for Robin, to understand how this all works, because you're starting to do elements of what will be the training, which is off the agenda. And there's one pressing point on the agenda that we agreed to about the accountability, the consistency, and the transparency. Because the work that we do in SARN, I have been advancing that principle in collaboration with reliable allies who are there. They are not needing the training because they came ready, because they were recruited on the basis of who they were already, not people working on their prejudice or any of that other stuff. They were already clear. They're down with dismantling white supremacy. So if you skip over the driving principle behind this work, you're going to miss that accountability piece, which is what we talked about on the registration thing. But George, I'll let you go on, but we can have this conversation in a little bit more detail at some point. But please tell people what you're cutting out of the agenda in order to end the meeting before the agenda is completed. Please tell people.
There's a partner set of principles and practices that have to go along with the anti-racism transformation. And Teresa named those: accountability, consistency, and transparency. I already mentioned that the training has to be consistent, and accountability is a form of support to make sure you're reaching your goals. So that accountability, consistency, and transparency is one of the things that'll be covered in that first night, the fundamental night. The second night is about what you see as barriers and coming up with a plan. Is there anything you want to add, Teresa, that I'm not saying?
No, George. I just say that the video that you were talking about, I think we should skip that, and that we should let the meeting end because there's a couple of agenda items that we're skipping. The whole Midwest UN decade, which was a brief report but there's no need to do it now because we will be getting together again, I hope, before that
Or then,
occurs,
yes.
which is due to occur the May 20th week. And it will be via Zoom after I realize that it's something that everyone in Will would benefit by having access. So I got the speakers and people in Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois to agree to do it via Zoom, and I would not have to come there in person. So enough said about that. So look for interesting things to come. So thank you, George. I think this is exactly the kind of meeting we need to have. And I know not everybody was fully engaged, but what Kim said, uhuru. And so in terms of what we do going forward, people need to understand the politics of those of us who are into the UN decade and into reparations. People need to understand that there are some of us who are, for lack of a better word, a bit advanced on this question of what our freedom and liberation looks like. I'm sorry to be going long, George, but this is the work I love that I've done all my life. I do it differently from you, but it is the necessary work. And
Okay.
I want to see where this can go because I'm going to learn from it, George. Because, you know, I think it hasn't worked in my view, but I want to learn from it. And I think your collaboration with Sheila and Kim and Dr. Linda absolutely necessary in order for you to learn as well about how this can work, because it is not a blueprint to anything. We all learn it and we make the road by walking every day.
Absolutely. So I
Thank
am
you.
going to show this like minute and a half thing because I think it's not exactly what I would use, but I think it's good and it shows that John knew what he was doing.
Me. And what fascinates me more is the parts of it that nobody seems to know. Whether people love CRT or they hate it, nobody knows this stuff. Nobody. So let me teach you one of the least known tenets of critical race theory. It's called interest convergence. The term was coined by Derek Bell, and the theory itself challenges so many of the things that we think we know about history. The idea is that gains have been made for people of color only when they actually provide greater gains for white people. So moments in history that we generally look back on and we say, wow, that is some beautiful racial progress. I'm so glad there was a moral awakening, like the abolition of slavery or the end of segregation. Those are moments that Bell claims were not actually moral awakening. They had selfish motives, namely that the United States' global image was seriously suffering and they needed to save face. They weren't necessarily finally looking out for Black people as much as they were serving their own interests. This takes a lot of the sparkle and shine out of our moments throughout history. You got to listen to my podcast episodes on CRT and you'll learn so much you didn't know. Critical race.
So I'm an oldster. I don't do podcasts, but when he sent me that, I was like, oh. And he says this is a person he uses often in his classes. And she's young and smart. So thank you all for spending some time today, more time than we thought, but this is important work and it's not fast. There is no cookie cutter. There are no easy answers. We will struggle through it, but we will get to good places together. So thanks for being willing to hang in there and make it happen. Many blessings. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.